Hello, and welcome to Law Talk. My name is John Celebrezzi, and I'm the co-founder of the Celebrezzi-Zangi Community Legal Education Project, as we call it, CZ-CLEP for short. Our organization provides continuing education about the judiciary and legislature to attorneys, judges, government officials, and the general public. As a career educator, I recognize early on how important legal matters are and how they impact our lives. I am the nephew of the late Anthony J. Celebrezzi, who was the popular 5-term mayor of Cleveland and a member of President Kennedy's cabinets. As a tribute to his lifetime commitment to the legal process, we dedicate this show.
Welcome to a special edition of Law Talk. In April of 2016, in conjunction with the Medina County Bar Association, Judges Joyce Kimber and Christopher Collier sponsored a 4-hour presentation entitled Getting to Know Specialized Dockets Programs and Services Available. The first 4 panel discussions included Judge Joyce Kimber, Judge Christopher Collier, Chief Probation Officer Veronica Perry, Orman Hall, Ohio Supreme Court Certified Dockets Director, Carl Damian, Specialized Docket Coordinator, Katrina Mazzullo, Special Dockets Probation Officer, Christian Jolly, In-House Counselor, Matthew Rosavi, Assistant Medina County Prosecuting Attorney, and Mike Callow, Defense Counsel Representative. This special production of Law Talk is made possible by the Celebrezzi-Zangi Community Legal Education Project in conjunction with Oz2 Productions and WCTV Wadsworth Community.
We have arranged this morning so that I will bore you, and just when you're starting to doze off, Judge Collier will speak, and then you'll perk right up again. Today we're doing a symposium on specialized dockets. Specialized dockets are particular sessions of court that offer therapeutically oriented judicial approaches to providing court supervision and appropriate treatment for individuals. These therapeutic approaches are also known as problem-solving courts. I think that's the reason I really like drug court and mental health court, is because I like the concept of problem-solving courts. It's a court where we're not focused so much on the punishment, but we're looking at how do we solve the underlying problems and benefit society at large. According to Ohio Supreme Court Justice Chief Maureen O'Connor, the people of Ohio rely on Ohio's judicial system on the average of 13,000 times a day to resolve their disputes, enforce the laws, and give guidance on legal issues. She further stated, what often goes unnoticed is the fact that Ohio's judges and Ohio's courts are the solution to the problem, the point of last resort, or the point of first relief in addressing seemingly intractable problems ranging from drug abuse to crime to family disintegration to juvenile justice and complex business disputes. The Ohio Supreme Court certifies specialized dockets. Courts that operate specialized dockets are required to submit an application, undergo a site visit, and submit program materials for the Supreme Court's review. The Supreme Court requires these courts to follow a minimum level of uniform practices. These will be detailed more thoroughly by Mr. Orman Hall, the Supreme Court Certified Dockets Director. 2 specialized dockets that have been certified by the Supreme Court of Ohio are operated in courtroom number 2. That's my courtroom. A mental health court docket and a drug court docket. The core of both specialized dockets is the use of an integrated team approach to problem solving. To that end, the treatment team consists of the judge, the members of the probation department, licensed clinical professionals, representatives from the defense bar, such as Mr. Callow, representatives from the prosecutor's office, such as Mr. Rosavi, and all the various treatment providers that you will hear from today. Today, you will hear from the members of the treatment team. And to give you an idea, this is the treatment team. These are the resources that we are putting together to help solve the problem of drug abuse and its effect in the criminal justice system in Medina County. I have to admit that I'm kind of proud of the fact that we were certified by the Ohio Supreme Court, so I'm going to show you our certificates. These were issued to us through the Ohio Supreme Court, one for our mental health court and one for our drug court. In order to do this, we had to meet all of these requirements that Mr. Hall will set forth for you. And it's only for a limited period of time. It's only from November 23rd, 2015 to December 31st, 2018, which tells you that the Supreme Court takes this very seriously. It's not something that they just certify lightly. So in order to be certified for this process, we had to meet the requirements of the Supreme Court. Drug court is established to assist chemically dependent offenders on their road to recovery by providing services and programming to assess their specific needs. The things that we may give to the people in front of us include residential treatment, which they love, trust me, intensive outpatient treatment, individual treatment, gender-specific programming, family therapy, medication-assisted treatment, as well as assistance in obtaining education, training, employment, transportation, anger management, criminal thinking, housing, furnishings for the houses, and that will be addressed in part, I think, by Ms. Perry, who will tell you that we have established a resource for people to get furnishings for their housing when they graduate from drug court. Parenting classes, domestic violence classes, as well as access to physical, dental, and mental health treatment. The certification by the Ohio Supreme Court provides quality assurance that the specialized dockets are being operated pursuant to evidence-based practices. A participant in a specialized docket has increased accountability as a result of increased contact between probation, the participant, and the court. National statistics have shown this to result in reduced crime, reduced recidivism, cost savings, greater compliance, longer and more successful treatment, and increased family reunification. As a result of House Bill 86, as well as the Faber Bill, the courts are more restricted in using prison as a sentencing alternative for 4th and 5th degree felonies. Drug courts provide the structure to provide accountability and treatment as an alternative to prison. Our goal here today is to provide a broad overview of the resources available in Medina County and suggestions on how to access those resources. You will hear from representatives of the various service providers as well as representatives from local community-based correctional facilities. The last panel will focus on medication-assisted treatment. Medication-assisted treatment addresses the disease of drug addiction. Chief Justice O'Connor has noted that the state has invested more than $16 million in medicated-assisted treatment programs. Case Western Reserve University researchers conducted a study of courts in 6 counties and found that the use of medication-assisted treatment is associated with decreased substance abuse, increased employment, and increased participation in voluntary self-help programs like Narcotics Anonymous and Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to remind you that we're going to have a 15-minute question and answer at the end, so please reserve your questions and answers for that time. Without further ado, the Honorable Judge Christopher Collier.
I've got no notes, so you're going to have to bear with me. First, thank you very much for the invitation. I appreciate being here. And the fact that there are so many people here means 2 things to me. The first thing is you are taking the idea and the problem that we have in drug and alcohol addiction very, very seriously. I'm looking at the faces of the attorneys who practice in front of me and other ones who don't even practice criminal law. And I know that you know that this is, without a doubt, the most serious social and legal problem that Medina County and the state of Ohio face. I've been working in my job now for nearly 18 years. And before that, handling criminal matters as a prosecutor and a defense attorney for 20 years before that. And I have never seen the kinds of problems that you attorneys are facing with your clients today as a result of drug and alcohol addiction. It is an amazing thing. When I talk to my early intervention program coordinator, she estimates that 90% of my cases, 90% of the felony matters are really drug and alcohol matters. Think about it for a minute. Each and every drug case, either a trafficking case or a possession case, is a drug case. But that's not all. Every burglary case that I can recall, every single one where a person goes into a house and steals a gun or a television set or jewelry, they don't want the gun, they don't want the television set, they want the money they can get for it or the drugs they can get for it. That's why these burglaries are occurring. The break-ins that occur in the outbuildings and in the cars, those are all as a result of this. The domestic violence offenses, the felonious assault offenses. When you trace them all back, when you really think about it, what you're looking at generally is drug and alcohol abuse or drug and alcohol addiction. If you think it didn't used to be like this, you're right. The numbers are staggering. Christine and I and Judge Kimber have been recently addressing the fact that people on our probation are dying as a result of drug and alcohol overdoses. People on probation, supervised by me, by Judge Kimber, by the probation department. There's something there. Something needs to be done, and that you're here means so much to me. It's a big problem. It's a huge problem. The fact that Judge Kimber has taken the time and the effort to do what she's doing in courtroom number 2 about this, the Supreme Court's specialized docket is amazing. She's thrown herself into it with energy and excitement, with vigor, with interest. You can see, right? It's a great thing, and it really helps the people on her docket. I got my job in 1999. I'm the luckiest man in the world, right? You know it, and I know it. In 1999, Christine Demelo, who's now my early intervention coordinator, we don't have a drug court. We're not a certified drug court like Judge Kimber. We use the intervention in lieu portal to get people into recovery. Different. We began to see more and more people violating probation as a result of their drug and alcohol use. And so here's how it works. A person comes in on a felony 5 drug offense. Maybe you got some heroin or some cocaine. It's a felony 5. These are people who are not going to go to prison. I mean, Judge Kimber and I would fill your prisons in a week if we started putting the felony 5 people in prison. And you're going to later find out when you listen to these folks, and especially the specialized docket coordinator, that it doesn't make sense. Here's what happens. They come in, you place these people on general probation, and my probation department does the best job they can. 30 days later, they got a probation violation. Why? They're testing positive. They come in front of you on the probation violation. Judge, I'll never do this again. You've really got my attention now. Back out on probation. You know, because you do the work. Next thing you know, you're getting a call from one of us, your guy's back in jail again. What happened? Positive test again. What? This time I really know, Judge. No, please. Just let me go back home. Everything will be okay. I'm really learning my lesson. And again, and again, and again. Trips to jail, maybe trips to prison, maybe trips to the hospital. Their families are all torn up about it. These are people who, when you look at them, when you sit and you look at them, they really, really want to figure their way through this thing. But they are lost. You know it. You represent them. I see the struggles in your eyes. But Judge, I've been telling them I don't understand. You come back after the sentencing or after the change of plea and you go, I just don't know what to do. I don't know how to reach them. In the year 2004?
5.
In 2005, we started this program, the Intervention in Lieu program. In 2004, we had more probation violations in my court than we had new crimes. I was seeing more people coming back again. We're failing when that happens. We're failing. And we're not understanding what we're actually seeing. And what we're seeing is drug and alcohol addiction. So back then, there was no certified dockets. There was no anything. And Christine Demelo, my drug court administrator, early intervention coordinator, sat down with me, and we put together a program that would seek to alleviate these issues. Okay, look, when you get this job Judge Kimber has, and I have, they tell you what the overriding purposes and principles are in criminal felony sentencing. Now listen to this, 292911A. The overriding purposes and principles of criminal felony sentencing are, punish the offender and protect the public from future crime by this offender and others. Period. What if the sentence you're issuing doesn't punish the offender and doesn't protect the public from future crime by this offender or others? What if doing the best thing you can doesn't do any of that? In fact, I submit, makes it worse. And that's what we were looking at. So, as a result of that, We put together an early intervention program on the treatment and lieu model, which does the following. We have a holistic approach. I'm using the words my coordinator told me to use. A holistic approach. What do I mean by that? We work on your residential issues. We work on your vocational issues. We work upon your social issues. And we work upon your addiction issues. All 4 of these things at the same time. Everybody in our intervention program works. We require that you get a job. Why? Self-respect. Discipline. And accountability. If you've got somebody working and we coordinate with every one of their employers, everyone, Ms. Demlow contacts every employer of one of the people in our early intervention program, and we use them as an extra set of eyes. Let us know what's happening so we can help. The other thing that you notice after a person has a job, because most of my people coming in, they don't have a job, or they've had 15 jobs in the last 3 weeks, right? Is that they begin to feel this idea that they're doing something with their lives that is meaningful. Look, we're talking about paper hat and dropping the fry jobs for some of them. But you know what? It means something to them. They've got something in their lives that means something to them. And a little bit of money. Made money. We coordinate with Medina Works. We coordinate with the Salvation Army. We coordinate with other programs, both private and public, to help every one of our folks get work. And every one of them, and we have 30 of them in the program at any given time, every one of them has a full-time job. I will tell you that less than a quarter of them had a full-time job coming in. And they love it. In addition, the residential placement is very, very important. What we've noticed is, and I think it makes sense to you if you think about it, if you're a drug and alcohol addict and if you're living with drug and alcohol addicts, your chances of actually being in recovery and sustaining your recovery are 0. None. You can't. You won't. You're living with people who are using. It just won't work for you. So we counsel with the people who they're living with. We enlist their aid and their help in an effort to try to help these folks engage in the things that are necessary for recovery. With that in mind, we partner with the Keating Center, Kathy's House, Julie Adams' House, Beacon House. Every single program that's available to us in a halfway house, we work with, we partner with, and we coordinate with. The idea is independent living for these folks. Understand, I don't want an underclass of drug addicts who aren't full members of our society, who are not fully free. That's the end result that we're looking for. People who can live their lives and stand and look at you right in the eye. See, I've been clean for the last 9 months, for the last 3 years. And then our brothers and sisters are back with us. Because understand, these folks who are in front of us for drug and alcohol addiction, those are our brothers and our sisters. In addition to that, we have found that the AA program and the NA program has been a portal to recovery in ways that are unbelievable. I never understood that until I saw it work. I saw the miracle work in my program. And we require that our folks attend those regularly. Get a sponsor, work the steps, do what's necessary in order to maintain their recovery. Finally, it is nothing works unless there's accountability, especially for a drug addict and alcoholic. And so we drug test them often, regularly, and share with them and with others what those results are. There are consequences for their failures, but those consequences don't have to be prison or jail. Those consequences need to be brought to their attention. Because when they fail at treatment, the next thing you need is more treatment. This thing isn't going to get fixed today or tomorrow, probably not in my lifetime, and maybe not in yours. This problem is bigger and deeper than anything we're going to be able to talk about here for the next 3 or 4 hours. It's a gigantic problem. Many different solutions are going to be tried. Some will have to discard. And some will get a hold of and see that this works. What the Supreme Court's doing and Judge Kimber is doing exactly that kind of thing, trying to find out what we're doing. Find out what works. Because in the end, I think we're all looking for the same thing. To bring our families back together again. To bring these lost folks home. To make our communities safer. I'm so glad you're here. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you about it. Specific questions we'll save until later. Again, thank you.
Supreme Court Certified Dockets Director, Orman Hall.
Well, following two incredibly eloquent judges is not an easy task. But I really appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I want to spend a few minutes doing three things. I want to reflect where we've been and where we're at now in terms of incarceration. I want to spend a few minutes on the drug court model, and then I want to talk about opiate addiction specifically for just a few minutes. So where we've been. If you go back to 1974 here in the state of Ohio, by the way, I'm a numbers guy. I apologize in advance. But if you go back to 1974 here in the state of Ohio, on any given day, there were about 7,700 people in prison. If you move forward to 2014, the average daily census in Ohio prisons was 51,000. The interesting thing about that 40-year intervening period is that if you look at uniform crime data, the rate of nonviolent and violent crime for 1974 is almost identical to the rate of crime in 2014. If you look at the cost of the difference between the number of people incarcerated in 1974 as opposed to 2014, it's about $1.3 billion, and that's just a day rate of keeping people in prison. The other interesting thing is, in terms of looking at the relationship between crime and incarceration rates, in the early 2000s, there was how many of you remember from your early college stats course what a correlation coefficient is? Just by show of hands. Oh, sorry. Okay. So correlation coefficient is a measure of association between two variables. If you have two points of data, and one series of data is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the second one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that's a perfect correlation of 1.0. If the numbers are completely random, then the correlation is 0. So in 2001, the correlation between nonviolent crime or violent crime and prison rates was 0.6, pretty healthy correlation. Nonviolent crime was 0.4. If you move forward to 2012, the correlations flipped. Nonviolent crime was much more predictive of incarceration rates than violent crime. And if you look at those counties that have the highest rates of opiate addiction, those counties are where we see the highest incarceration rates. We're putting many more people in prison than we were in the early 2000s. And it would appear, based on the data, that drug-related criminal activity is driving those incarceration rates. The drug court model. Here in the state of Ohio, we have 213 courts that have certified dockets. About 91 of those are drug courts. And what we know from the national literature is that drug courts work. Drug courts are highly effective. Drug courts focus on those people in your community, those people in the criminal justice system that have two characteristics. They have high criminogenic need. They are engaging in serious criminal behavior, number one. And number two, they have high clinical need. They are people that have, for whatever reason, have compulsive drug and alcohol problems, or they have mental health needs that they just can't deal with. So drug courts are intended to focus on those people in the criminal justice system that have those two characteristics. The drug court model brings several things to play. It brings the authority figure of a judge. It brings the expertise of an extended treatment team that includes a drug court coordinator. It includes probation. It includes counseling. And on a weekly basis, those professionals, the judge and his or her treatment team, meet to discuss those participants that are in the drug court. The drug court participants typically go through this process of where they're offered to either participate in drug court or experience whatever consequence that they would have experienced if they weren't in drug court, which would typically be jail or prison. The sentence is suspended and the person moves voluntarily into a drug court setting, and then they move through phases. The key elements, again, are accountability. What we know is that those people who are struggling with serious addiction problems, that it's not proximal behavior to expect them to immediately discontinue their drug use. So we use things like drug testing to verify that they are complying with the abstinence order of the court. They don't always do that. When they relapse, there are typically consequences for that relapse. When they're compliant with being abstinent and other court orders, there would be incentives. They would receive a gift card, an AHA from the bench. One of the things that I noticed about Judge Kimber is an incredible ability to connect with her drug court participants. It's really impressive. And I think the final piece that I would mention about drug courts is that we move people through phases. The initial phase is intensive. The expectations are that we normalize people's lives. We create expectations around structure. The second phase would typically focus on employment, and the final phase would typically focus on stabilization before we move them into a commencement phase. Again, what we know from the literature is that this model is highly effective at taking people who have high criminogenic risk and high clinical need and moving them into a state of productivity. So a word about opiate addiction, and then I'll pass the podium one. Opiate addiction. Drugs and alcohol have been with our society for an extended period of time. They've always been with us. But opiate addiction is somewhat unusual. I think it was mentioned that about 95% of those people in Judge Kimber's court right now are opiate addicted. And reflecting, again, on my experience as a professional in this field, prior to coming to the court, I was in the executive branch. Prior to that, I was the director of an alcohol, drug, and mental health board in Fairfield County for about 21 years. In 1999, in Fairfield County, we were able to identify 4 people who sought treatment for opiate addiction. A county of 150,000, very close to the size of Medina County. By 2010, my last year in Fairfield County, 67% of those people who were approaching our addiction treatment agency were there because they were addicted to prescription opiates or heroin. So we went from 4 people to 67%, and we were turning away 200 people per month. It's really quite remarkable. In terms of the most serious consequence around opiate addiction, it's overdoses. Overdoses are driven by opiates in ways that are atypical of other drugs of abuse. If you go back to the early 1990s, Ohio was seeing about 400 overdoses per year. In the last year that we have solid data from the Department of Health, which is 2014, we had 2,600 overdoses. I think that we may approach 3,000 overdoses in 2015, largely because of the rise of fentanyl-related overdoses. In 2013, we had 84 fentanyl overdoses. In 2014, we had 502. There are anecdotal news stories coming out of Lorain County where there is this new fentanyl isolate called U-4700 that is anywhere from 400 to 6,000 times more potent than morphine. Incredibly potent. It's going to be driving overdoses for a pretty significant period of time. There are several things that you need to know about opiate addiction. In terms of the major effects, the first is analgesia, pain relief. That's why it's sought after. It's why it's used in our healthcare system. The second is euphoria. The euphoria produced by opiates is second to no other medication. It is incredibly, prescription opiates and heroin are the same, and they are incredibly addictive. The third piece, and this is really important, is respiratory suppression. That is the mechanism of death. People die from opiates because their respiration is suppressed. And the final piece, and this is also important, is the degree to which we can develop tolerance for opiates. So if you look at alcohol, which is the primary drug of abuse in our society and has been for probably 300 years, the ratio of tolerance for an early stage to a late stage alcoholic is about 1 to 4. Early stage alcoholic might consume an 8-pack of beer a day. A later stage alcoholic might consume the hard liquor equivalent of a case of beer a day. So that's about 1 to 4. In terms of tolerance for opiates, an early stage opiate addict might consume 30 milligrams of prescription opiates a day. Later stage opiate addict, I have a good friend, an addiction doctor who recently passed away, Dr. Phil Pryor, that was treating a heroin addict that was consuming the morphine equivalent of 10,000 milligrams. A lethal dose of opiates for someone who has no tolerance for opiates is about 100 milligrams. So if you think about that, that individual was consuming enough heroin every day to kill about 100 people, more than enough heroin to kill every single individual in this room if all of us are not tolerant of opiates. So that's the mechanism of death. We develop tolerance rapidly, and then after discontinued use, our tolerance drops very rapidly. So if we incarcerate somebody, say for 30 days, who is consuming large amounts of prescription opiates or heroin, and we release them without some form of protection, such as medication-assisted treatment, the likelihood of their overdosing and potentially dying is pretty significant. So those are the major elements of opiate addiction. Drug courts, the combination of intervention in lieu and drug court, which you have in place here in Medina, is powerful. Intervention in lieu targets those slightly less high-risk offenders. The drug court is intended, again, for those people who are both high risk and high need. Judge Kimber does a great job. I was really impressed with her work, and I think the combination of these two courts is pretty dynamic in terms of looking at your incarceration rates. They are significantly on the lower side, so you guys are doing a great job in terms of processing people that have compulsive addictive disorders. The opiate problem in our state is serious. And we have a lot of work to do. I'm very pleased that you have a physician on hand for later this afternoon that's going to be dealing with medication-assisted treatment. And thank you.
From Prosecutor Dean Holman's office, Assistant Prosecutor Matthew Razavi.
Good morning. I want to divert your, hopefully, you don't mind, divert your attention just a little bit away from drug court intervention in lieu of conviction to talk about another specialized docket or where your clients can go. A lot of you know about it, but as a reminder and how it works is our first offenders program. Before I do that, obviously I'm not Dean Holman. You can see him on your schedule there that Dean Holman would have loved to have been here. He found out yesterday the timing of this panel and wasn't able to be here. He's at a drug task force meeting. So you're stuck with me. In any event, I hope I can provide you some useful information. First offenders program. A lot of you are aware of what that is. But when we have all these excellent programs like Judge Collier's early intervention program, the drug court or Medina intervention program that Judge Kimber administers, I hope you are aware of the distinctions of when to use a pretrial diversionary program. As probably a lot of you are aware, the Ohio Revised Code allows prosecutors to have a pretrial diversionary program. I think it's authorized in 293536. If you want to look at that part of the Revised Code, it really is helpful because that is the part of the code that allows a prosecutor to put people in first offenders program. Well, what type of people do you want to direct to that? Generally, those are going to be people that are involved in nonviolent offenses, people that are involved in thefts, people involved in passing bad checks, people that are involved in receiving stolen property, and generally people that don't have drug problems of the nature that are going to direct them more towards intervention and towards the drug court programs. How does it work? Many of you may know how it works, but I want to remind you, because when we have all these programs, sometimes people confuse and mix and match the requirements. If your client needs to be in this pretrial diversionary program, which we call the first offenders program, what do? Well, once they're charged and they're in court, they ought to apply for it with the court by filing a motion. And you can cite it under the code section I said, and try to be in the pretrial diversionary program or the first offenders program, and ask the court to have your client come before the court and waive time. That's what's required in the statute, waive their speedy trial time. The great benefit of this program is once they've waived their time, unlike intervention in lieu of conviction, they don't come before the court and enter a guilty plea that's withheld. They come before the court, at least in Medina County, some other counties do it differently. They come before the court, they waive their speedy trial time. They'll come down to our office, and with your assistance, they can fill out this application and notarize it. And really that's going to say what the nature of their offense is, what restitution is due, and then they're directed to the agency alternative paths. Ultimately, if they're let in, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit, and I want to speak quickly because we have a lot of speakers here with much better and more important information. But before you get in that program, this really is at the discretion of the prosecutor's office. So we'll send out, which the statute contemplates, we're going to send on requests to the police and to the victims, and we're going to take that into consideration on whether or not people get admitted. But if they do get in, it's a great program, and it's administered by Alternative Pass, Lenny Rovon and Alternative Pass, and for 6 months to a year, and they pay a fee, I think it's $550, and for 6 months to a year, they have classes, they have counseling, and they'll pay their restitution. And ultimately, if they're successful, the case is dismissed. Now, I wanted to mention that because that's really important to, one, distinguish it from the programs here, and just to remind people that that's available. Obviously, what's the speakers so far have talked about are programs that are for people that have a much more serious problem, people that have drug and opiate problems. And speaking with Mr. Holman prior to being here today, we talked about, and Mr. Holman certainly recognizes that our office, the state of Ohio, realizes that we can't prosecute, convict, and incarcerate our way out of this drug problem, specifically out of the opiate problem. So in Medina County, we're so lucky to have 2 great drug court programs, Judge Collier's early intervention program, Judge Kimber's Medina intervention program. And so we embrace that, and we encourage people to identify their clients that belong in these programs. And from the state's perspective, trying to bring something new to what we've talked about here, I think what's really important is to identify it quickly. We have people, this is from my observation, and maybe some of you that have come in for an arraignment, I've leaned over to you and said, hey, I looked at this guy's file. He doesn't have a record. He looks like he's going to be eligible for intervention. You may want to apply for intervention. You may want to get him into Judge Collier's, I'm not over in Judge Collier's that often, but when I am, get him into the early intervention program. Get him into the drug court. Apply for intervention. Why is that important? Well, you've heard why it's important already here today. In the time between a pretrial or an arraignment and a pretrial, a lot of bad things can happen. You can pick up a new charge, you can go steal from your family, you can get kicked out of your house, and you can die. I mean, we've heard that. You can die. And a lot of these people, when they, between then, arraignment and pretrial, what do? They've been in jail for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and now they're back out on the streets. If you identify them as people that should be in these programs, get them in there quickly. Please file the motions. What's going to happen then is they're going to meet with Christine Demlow, and she's going to talk to them. She's going to give them resources. She's going to give them people to talk to. They're going to meet with probation for the Medina intervention program, for intervention loop. They're going to have resources. They're going to go get an assessment. That, you have the power to have them avoid all these collateral problems. So from the state's perspective, we encourage people to really be proactive in filing these motions. You can make the ultimate difference in how the people proceed through these programs. That's pretty much all I have. We are very, from the state's perspective, very happy and lucky to have these programs. We'd ask all of you to embrace them and take advantage of them.
Thank you, Mr. Razavi. I have the privilege of introducing the next speaker, humbly myself. Thank you, David. Who am I? My name is Mike Callow. I'm a private practitioner. I take court-appointed cases. I've been practicing for about 20 years, the last 12 of which almost exclusively in Medina County doing criminal defense work. And I'm here because I'm a member of the drug court team in Judge Kimber's room, and I participate every other Wednesday for 2 hours in a roundtable discussion where we go through every single person in both the mental health as well as the drug court docket. And I'm the defense counsel representative of that. So I raise issues, I raise questions. I also, in the process, represent some of the people that have violations, and I give them advice as well. That's my role, and that's what I do. It's complicated at times, and it's difficult. But I'm here to speak to you, and I want to ask, how many people are doing criminal defense work out there? I know a lot of you, right? I want to talk to you. They've asked me to tell you what I've learned as participating in drug court. So I want to do 3 things for you. First of all, I want to tell you what I've learned. I've gone to a seminar, a national seminar. I've done a lot of research. I get emails all the time from people saying, don't forget to read this article and read that article. Let me tell you what I've learned. One, from our client's perspective, this is a severe problem. It's not just something that you talk about with your client. As you know, those of you that are practicing, you talk about it with the client, the mother, the father, if the parents are involved, the girlfriend, the friends. They all call your office, and they're all concerned. So from that perspective, it's severe. When they say 90% of your criminal defense clients are there for drug problems, it has to be the first question you ask. It has to be the first thing you think about. It has to be the first thing you talk about. That's very odd, because when we went to law school, they didn't tell you that. When we went to law school, we talked about motions to suppress, fighting the prosecutor on this issue and that issue. And what we end up doing all day long is dealing with drug-addicted clients who have a severe problem. Almost all of my clients have a severe problem. And I think that's the first thing you learn. It's the first thing your eyes have to open up to. This is different than anybody who's practiced law before us. We're in this, and that's what we're seeing. I think that's the first thing I want to impress upon you is you have to ask, you have to talk about it, then you have to talk about it again, and then you have to talk about it again. It's not about motions to suppress. It's not about the illegal stop from the police officers. You have to talk about what is going on in your life and what's your drug problems. How can I help you? It's the most important thing you do. To me, it's eye-opening when you argue very eloquently. I know, thank you, Judge. When you argue very eloquently and you get a bond, and that person turns out 2 days later to overdose. It questions everything we do. As a defense lawyer, it questions everything we do. So I think you have to early and often and frequently talk to them about what is almost always going to be a severe drug problem. That's the first thing that I want to express to you and get you to do. The second thing, which I've learned, is the court system has lots of options for you. And the community has lots of options for you. You have to sometimes, kicking and screaming, bring the client to those options. But educate yourself as to all those options. Find out what they are. Discover what they are. Call them up on the phone. What services do you offer? Can you get my client in? Are they going to be locked up? Are they going to be able to leave? Are they going to get medically assisted treatment or not? Do they participate in AA or NA or not? But there's lots of options out there. And I think it's incumbent on us as lawyers. Probably another thing they didn't teach you in law school. But I think it's incumbent on us to find out that information, educate ourselves, and bring that information to the clients and the families. I think that's super important. One of the things when you work with all these people, I think you'll find out, people in the courts and people in these programs, they are absolutely desperate to find an answer. And it's glaring to you when you talk to them. Everybody knows the problem. Everybody on this panel knows the problem. And they're desperate to find solutions and save people's lives. And that's one of the things you certainly see when you get involved in these programs. Is and I don't use the word desperate lightly. They are really searching. They're really working hard. And the last thing I'll tell you, from my own personal experience and some of yours, speaking to the defense lawyers who raised their hand, be careful yourselves. This is a tough business. When somebody dies on you, it's hard. toughen up. It ain't easy. Okay? Thank you. Want a question and answers, or would you like to speak, please?
No, I'm okay. I'll answer any questions later, but can we have
We're going to skip through, because of time, some of the probation officers. I'm sure you're upset in speaking. But what I'd like to introduce to, I'd like to first introduce Stephanie Robinson. If you can come up and speak. Thank you. Yes, that's okay.
After the peer support piece of drug court. Different than anybody here, I can come out and say that I'm 7.5 years clean from drugs and alcohol. And so what I offer clients is the opportunity to speak with another addict, somebody that's in recovery, somebody that is a functioning member of society. I live in Medina. And so I meet with clients weekly, some of them bi-weekly, some of them monthly, and our goal is basically, number one, for me to model recovery, for them to actually see another person that's in recovery and what that looks like. I'm not just sober. I'm not just free from drugs and alcohol. I live a life of joy and happiness and peace and serenity, and so I want to model that behavior for them. I want to identify strengths that they have, positive attributes, because so often these people, the negative has been clearly pointed out time and time again. So I want to really work on their strengths, but also work on identifying barriers to recovery, to long-term recovery, because I don't just see recovery, and we don't see recovery just as an event. It's a lifestyle. And so I like to focus, yes, we look at treatment, but with peer support, we're really focusing on recovery. What does life look like after drug court? Because, yeah, we want you to graduate, but we don't want you to come back, number one. And we want you to be a permanent contributing member of society. Continuous long-term sobriety. If we're just there to get them to graduate, we're not doing our job, because we're just going to keep turning them over and over again. And so to do that, I help them assess readiness to change. I help them understand how the brain works, do a little bit of addiction education, help them deal with stigma. Because as you know, in our community and every community across the U.S., stigma is a real thing they have to deal with. Well, I'm clean now and people judge me. They don't trust me. I'm a convicted felon. I can't get a job. I can't do all these things. So I help them work through those. I help them using a recovery plan, and this is a document that they fill out. And the recovery plan will establish long-term goals. So really, what do you want your life to really look like? Some of these people, some of our participants have never actually thought about that. They've lived in the here and the now. How am I going to get high today? And how am I going to feel good today? So we're trying to get them to really think big picture, and that's what peer support offers. So the recovery plan focuses on long-term goals, and then it breaks down like the holistic approach. We look at their entire life. So we look at their connection to the recovery community. Are they connected to their recovery community? Because the higher the connection to the community, the higher their chance of success. Are they attending meetings? Do they have a sponsor? Are they talking to other people in recovery? Because one thing we know is that recovery is incredibly difficult in isolation. So maybe they're checking off the boxes of what they need to do in drug court today, but when those boxes are gone, that structure is gone, we want to make sure that they have connection to the recovery community. We want to look at their physical health. Are they taking care of themselves? Again, a lot of our participants have never really looked at a lifestyle of balance, where we're eating properly, we're exercising properly. We're not talking about dieting or anything like that. We're just talking about balance and health, general well-being. I wake up, I care about myself. My odds of recovery are going to be much higher. We're also going to look at their spiritual health. We're going to talk about a higher power. We're going to talk about God. We're going to talk about what that looks like for them. And the focus here is a customized approach. So the peer support, it is open to all pathways. It's not saying recovery has to look like this or recovery can't look like that. It's what's going to work for you. We're also going to look at emotional health. So how are they doing in relationships? Again, most of our participants, my time in active addiction, relationships were just a means to the end. If you could help me get drugs, you were my best friend. If you wanted to party with me, we were going to solve the world's problems. Now I'm sober. I got sober at the age of 29. And everyone's like, well, now you have to make friends and have relationships. And I'm like, I don't know how that works. I don't know how to do that. I'm not good at that. So helping them establish relationships, create healthy boundaries, emotion regulation. In that first year of sobriety, You're learning to be sad again. You're learning to be angry again. You're learning what happiness is and how to deal with those emotions without using. Because in the past, we were happy, we used. We were sad, we used. Angry, used. Jealous, used. Now we don't use anymore. So we can't just take away the drugs and say, okay, go live your life drug-free, don't commit crime. We're helping and giving them tools. We also look at job and education. What's their job today? Where do they see themselves 5 years from now? Again, we're going to live for today, but we're going to look ahead for the future. Do they need to go back to school? How can they do that where they're not diving headfirst back, full time? Let's take it easy. We have a lot of clients that want to give back. So helping them to be able to work with addicts in the future. What a beautiful model that would be. Living situation. A lot of our addicts are in what I would call high-risk situations. But they need somewhere to live. But again, like somebody spoke of earlier, when they come out of drug court and they don't have all those structures, if somebody's using or is an active addiction in their home, they're going to go back to using. They don't see any way out. How can we help link them to community services or get them options so they can have somewhere else to live in a healthy environment? And the key is to help them figure it out. As a peer supporter, I'm not there to tell them what to do. It's their recovery. I want them to make their own decisions. I'm just there to encourage, model behavior, and support them. And then we're also looking at individual situations. So people that are parents, what do they want their parenting to look like? What do they want family to look like in the future? Maybe they want to get married. We're letting them dream big, and think that they have a future because they do. And the beautiful thing about peer support that I offer, the day they graduate, I don't say, see you guys, see you later. Luckily, I'm able to offer peer support for 90 days post-graduation. So what that does is it helps us continue to connect with them. Because we see participants come through, and right at the end, there's a fear of success. There's a fear of the unknown, and there's a fear of joy. Just like many criminals that are incarcerated, they get used to being incarcerated. Drug court, they're not throwing parties when they graduate. They're scared. They're scared of what life might look like. And so sometimes we might see self-sabotage and things happening at the end. So now we're offering that 90 days post-graduation. So I'm able to meet with them, go over their recovery plan, which they bring each week, so we can check in, how are things going, so they don't feel like they're just being dropped off. There's a transition. We're easing them back into their normal life. So that's what I do as peer support. Thank you.
Okay, Courtney, if I can get you to come up here. Our next speaker is a participant in our program with Judge Kimber's program, Courtney Kowal.
Hi, I'm Courtney Kowal. I'm an addict in recovery. Today is actually my 11 months of sobriety. So I'm pretty pumped about that. So I'm kind of nervous, but I kind of just wrote stuff down, but I didn't really wake up one morning saying that I wanted to be a drug addict. I didn't wake up and say, I want to be a drug addict. I never said that I wanted to lose everything that I worked so hard to build. Nobody wants this. None of us want this, but we choose it over and over again. That's the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I didn't want to become a soulless, harmful degenerate, but that's where drug addiction brought me, and this is what drug addiction did to me. When you look at me, you may not see addiction. You cannot see the internal damage done to my body. You cannot see the havoc that I created, the tragedy I endured. You cannot see the impending doom or calamity that I felt, the tumultuous path of destruction that I left everywhere I went, the lives that I affected. You may not see or feel it, but I am a face of addiction, and I am a grateful recovering addict. Due to these people, I'm here. I had given up. I gave up on myself, on my family, and on God. I gave up on my career. I gave up on life. I craved death, and I begged to whatever God was out there that I would die swiftly and mercifully. But he didn't succumb to my wishes. For some reason, my higher power wanted me to live. These people wanted to help. In my darkest hour, in my deepest time of despair, when I gave up, they didn't. They saw a small spark of hope, and they wouldn't let go of it. So I embarked on my drug court journey, and I had ups and downs. I had some recovery, and I relapsed. I was lackadaisical. I got cocky and arrogant and impulsive. I lost my humility. My family watched as I made reckless choice after another. They ebbed me on with warnings, and Miss Dameron reached out to me, and I rebuked any help that anyone was offering. I chose to sit alone in my tragedies and my bad decisions. I rested in the dark, hellish place that was so comfortable to me. Everyone pleaded with me to pick myself up, but I only became more and more reclusive, more and more withdrawn. And I fell hard and fast into the throes of addiction again. I was once in its grasp. I used former tragedies and resentments as fuel to get high. I spun out of control so much quicker than before. The warnings of addiction being a progressive disease came to fruition. These people, my mother, my brother, my AA friends, and my entire drug court team picked me up. They refused to give up on me. They had hope when I had despair. They had a vision when I could see nothing but bleak oblivion. I couldn't see it then, but I see it today. I wanted death, cold and swift, poetic and tragic, all-encompassing and sweet. But today I live, and I persevere. I escaped. I'm not a survivor, and I'm not a victim. I am a warrior. I am a soldier in the good fight. I wouldn't be alive if it weren't for these people. You may have heard about addiction, but I am addiction. I am an addict. I am a mother. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I'm a friend. And I am a responsible human being. I'm a person in recovery. I go to meetings. I have strong support within AA and NA. I have strong support from drug court. My family loves and urges me to continue working to achieve my goals in sobriety. People care about me today. People want me there today. I am responsible and accountable today. Due to my family, drug court, AA, my sponsor, and my friends. Due to them, I persevere. I walk in the sunlight of the Spirit today, and I am relieved of the obsession to drink and use today. I am a face of addiction, living proof that what these people are doing is working. They loved me when I couldn't love myself. I am living proof that not everyone gets it their first time. Treatment didn't work the first time for me, but drug court knew that jail was not the right answer. I know that if I would have been sent to jail and cut loose, I would definitely be dead today. I surely wouldn't be standing in front of you and speaking. I am a face of addiction and so much more. I am a woman trudging the road to happy destiny. Trudging means to walk with a purpose. And today, not only do I walk with a purpose, I have a purpose. I have integrity. I have self-worth. I have self-respect. I can look in the mirror without feeling guilt, shame, and remorse. Today, I am alive, and more than that, I am prospering. Drug court didn't take my life. It didn't take my choice. They gave me my life and my choice back. When I look back, I see death, hurt, and hopelessness. We are dying out there. One overdose a day and growing. It is a full-blown epidemic. Sending addicts to jail is sentencing them to death. Today, I can be an example of something that is working in this jaded system, a small glimmer of hope in the hell that is addiction. So when you think of an addict, don't think of a roughed-up junkie with a needle in her arm, a drunken bum with a paper bag in the inner city. Don't think of a prostitute selling her soul for her next fix or a hardened man crying into his whiskey. Think about me. I am here to tell you addiction does not discriminate. You never know who is afflicted with this disease. It could be your child's teacher, the cashier, your banker, your sister, a construction worker, your doctor, a painter, an athlete, your waitress. These are all people that I know in AA that are afflicted with the disease that you would not ever know they were addicts. It could even be your son or daughter. We're people. We suffer from a queer and severe mental obsession, an allergy to alcohol and drugs, a manifestation of your deepest, darkest, most grave fears brought to life, put in front of your face day after day, hour after hour, minute after minute, and second after second, fear-based illusions conjured by the most evil crevices of your inner psyche. Although there is no cure for alcohol or addiction, I am recovered. I have a daily reprieve contingent upon my spiritual well-being. Countless others have recovered and proved this to be factual. I walked through hell and I came out. I'm a little scarred. I was morally and spiritually bankrupt, inner turmoil and angst, physical torture, but I am stronger. Because of these people I have mentioned, and I will continue to mention, that judge, that mother, that brother, those friends, the PO, my recovery house, and Carla. She's my encourager. These people are gladiators. They stand beside me. They fight in this war, this plague. They see the utter devastation every day, the ruins, the half-lives of us. But yet they refuse to give up. See, we're sick people. The medical community acknowledges alcoholism and addiction as a disease. It is about time that the court system follows suit. You wouldn't turn your back on a person with cancer. If they were in remission and the cancer came back, you wouldn't sentence them to jail. We need more education on this disease that is killing us. This isn't just an inner city problem. It's everywhere. Treatment works. AA works. Throwing a sick, tormented person in jail does not. Sure, you might get a few months of clarity, but as soon as they are out, it is a 92% chance that they are going to relapse. And that when they use again, out of that 92%, 56 will die within that year. 56%. They ingest the poison into themselves. I've seen it happen time and time again, and I'm sick of it happening. I'm sick of my friends being sentenced to death. This is a serious problem, one that Medina Drug Court is recognizing. So I want you to ask yourselves if you're going to give up on the sick and suffering, or will you stand up and aid people on this journey? When an addict reaches out, will your hand be there to pull them from the gates of insanity? Heroin is the devil. Heroin is not discreet, nor is it subtle foe. Today, with my resources and my higher power, I can look into the devil's eyes, and I don't need to speak. My eyes communicate it all. My army is behind me. At the brinks of death, it had me, and today it flees from me. I am addiction. I am part of recovery. I'm part of hope. These are my gladiators. Will you be somebody's? Will you join these people as advocates and get educated on the epidemic that is raging quietly through your neighborhoods and your suburbs? Help somebody that is incapable of helping themselves. We didn't choose this, but today I choose to live.
Sorry, you got to follow that. Michael Lanzo.
All right. I'm going to try to make this as quick as possible because I'm extremely nervous. My name is Michael Lanzo, and I am a recovering heroin addict who just celebrated 8 months on Monday. I entered drug court in January of 2014, and if you had met me then, you would not think that I would be standing here today telling you about how much my life has changed. When I entered drug court, I was fully strung out on heroin, living in a drug den in Rittman, Ohio, with seemingly no hope. I entered drug court, and it took me probably all about a week to earn my first probation violation. I spent 23 days in jail, and they let me out with a sentence to do IOP. 3 weeks later, I was right back in jail. I then went to CBCF in Lorraine and spent 120 days there. When I got out, that was like the first time I had actually had a little bit of time sober. I was sober for 7 months, but I wasn't working a program. I don't think I really took it seriously then. I just kind of went through the motions and did what I had to do, trying to get through probation, and inevitably I relapsed. That was in December of 2015, and again, back in jail on another probation violation. They then sent me to CATS in Cleveland. I was there from February 2nd to April 22nd, 2015, and from then on, again, I had some sobriety behind me. I was sober until August of last year when I relapsed again. Now, there was no reason that they the drug court team should have not sent me to prison. I think they had to have seen something in me that I did not see in myself, because from the outside looking in, you would have thought that at that point I was hopeless. But they decided to give me another chance and sent me to Kathy's house here in Medina, where I got involved in AA, got a sponsor, and started working the steps. And for me, that's when my life really started to change. That was the answer for me. Today I have a job, a great job. I just got a new car, but it's not about the material things for me anymore. I got the respect of my family back today. I got friends back. I have a good support team around me, and it's all because of Judge Kimber's drug court and, you know, the team. Carla Damron, Miss Perry, Miss Masulo, they all care so much about us, and I am proof that, you know, you're not going to get it right the first time. This whole journey has been about trial and error. Something doesn't work, okay, let's go back, let's tweak it, and try again. And I am extremely grateful for that, and I think that's all I have to say.
We've run long on our first one.
Comments made by John's guest on Law Talk are solely those of his guest and do not necessarily reflect the views of Celebrezze Zangy Community Legal Education Project. To view this show and others, go to www.czclep.org. In the Wandsworth area, a complete listing of dates and times of this broadcast, tune in to WCTV Channel 15 or log on to wandsworthcity.com and follow the links to WCTV. At CZClep, we're devoted to the education of today's legal issues. Fueled by the public's keen interest in our legal system and current events, CZClep is dedicated to the educational venues aimed at enhancing the understanding by all citizens, regardless of age, education, occupation, or wealth. A function of the Celebrezze Zangy Community Legal Education Project.